Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to episode number 217 from the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and welcome to our podcast. This is a question-driven podcast, so if you have questions, send them to us at podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I do my best each week to answer each and every one. Obviously, sometimes I can't get through all of them, but this week is going to be good. We don't have very many this week, and I'm happy to be here. I think being a strength coach is becoming a more and more difficult job as years go by. A long time ago, when we were kind of rarities, it was great. We all kind of agreed on the same things. Not so true anymore. I've discovered something interesting. Some of the young strength coaches, and I just was dealing with a young thrower who had this today. She was told that the Olympic lifts are too complex to learn, so we don't need to learn them. Now, these are discus throwers, shot putters, hammer throwers, javelin throwers, and they're tradition in every great thrower I know. I don't know of anybody who didn't do the basic combination of the power lifts and the Olympic lifts. But nowadays, we're hiring people who don't even want to try to learn how to coach the events. So folks, if you're interested in strength and conditioning, remember, you need to have every tool in your box. The power lifts, the Olympic lifts, bodybuilding, kettlebells, calisthenics, running, jumping, plyos, everything you think of. And when you take it all together, you bring it all together and you pull out what's most important, you generally come up with a pretty good plan. All right, so let's get started with our questions. Our first question is from Wesley. And Wesley says this: many thanks for doing the podcast. I've learned a ton from it, and it's increased my understanding of the Omni book. Well, thank you. The Easy Strength Omni book is that book right there behind me. It came out a couple of months ago. The follow-up was Easy Strength for Fat Loss, which is a very popular topic. It's available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. I'm on my 8th or 9th week of Easy Strength, so you're right there in that 40-day transition period, and about to take a short break and then start a new round. I've been doing 5 days a week, 3 to 5 lifts. Great. My go-to lifts have been the Kettlebell overhead press, and he uses the 25, 35, and 45 pounders. Chin-ups, 10 plus. Ring dips, 10 plus. Interesting. Kettlebell swings with a 75-pound weight, and hanging leg raises. I prefer the bent knee versus the straight hanging leg raise. I think it's a little bit easier on, I just think it's a better overall exercise for most people. Nothing against either one, but I prefer the bent knee. On Saturdays, I go to the gym and do barbell press, heavy bench, heavy trap bar deadlift, wide grip using the plates as handles, like somebody else does. Heavy trap bar deadlift, that was when I was young, was called the Steve Reeves, the Reeves deadlift, and back squats. I'm progressing really well at almost everything. I can now bench 225 for 3, deadlift 315 for 3, and squat 255 for 3. He's 42 at 6'1", 195. So those are solid numbers. Yeah, those are good. But my press is really lagging at 105 for 4. I'm guessing the military press. Seems I have a weak link in my shoulders because I've really been focused on the lift. I'm not sure I'm recovering well enough, so I'm thinking my next round would be just 2 lifts, overhead press, and maybe goblet squats. I'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions. Well, generally the squat doesn't work well in Easy Strength, and I go through it in the Omni book probably to death. But I think anytime you choose 2 exercises and you do them for a while, there's always value. Now, if you decide to do something as simple as this, Wesley, so don't do the whole 40-day cycle with it. Maybe take 2 or 3 weeks. This isn't perfect by any means, but let's just say you do it for 3 weeks, this idea, where you press 5 days a week and you do goblet squats, maybe not only as a warm-up, but it also as some leg work. The goblet squat is a wonderful exercise. It's great for mobility. It's great for teaching the movement. It's wonderful for anybody over you're probably at that age. I mean, to be honest, I used to say 55 with the goblet squat. Now I'm sliding it down more and more. Let's just say 35 as a great exercise. So if you did the goblet squat, you did sets of 8, sets of 10 with it, and then you focused hard on the press, I think you'd make fairly good progress. Now, the reason I picked 3 weeks is I think everything works for about 6 weeks. So we're going to have that time, because at the end of 3 weeks with the overhead press, the military press family, you'll know if you're making progress or not. One of the issues most people have, Wesley, when it comes to pressing issues, it's funny, I have a pressing issue, yes, is that they don't press enough. And really, to be good at the military press, you have to kind of, sign up for it, okay? It can't be 1 day a week. Oh, for the record, you can certainly just overhead press 1 day a week. That would be fine. But if you're having an issue like Wesley's having, you just generally have to do it more. Oddly, I think the same is true about the squat. Now, I'm not born to be a great squatter, but when I started upping the squat workouts in my life, I put on a lot of body weight and I got better at the squat. I never had to train the deadlift, for example. My deadlift was better than anybody's without even having to do the lift. You know, asterisk, read the bottom. Yes, I did Olympic lift 5 days a week, so you don't worry about the deadlift so much. Well, I think your plan is good. I would give it a 2 to 3 week start, look at it, get a sense of things. If you're making progress after 2 weeks, go to the 3rd week. If you still feel like, yeah, this is pretty good, go a little bit farther, knowing that you're going to hit the wall at weeks 5 or 6. So I'm thinking 3 weeks for sure. Be sure you're using your brain the whole time, keeping good notes, getting a real sense for how things feel. But if you do decide to do this, you probably could have a workout or 2 in the week with a lot of reps. Now, I do up to 100 reps in the military press in some of our workouts. So when I do the double kettlebell press and I go a set of 2, a set of 3, a set of 5, a set of 10 with reasonable kettlebells, and then I repeat that 5 times. What's interesting about that is I'm basing the lifts on the 10. So the 2, 3, and 5 are just like practice. They're grooving. They're setting your nervous system up. Oddly, when I do those 2, 3, 5, 10 days, I notice very quickly that my shirts fit different because it feels like my barnyard wide shoulders are growing, my cannonball deltoids, whatever phrase you want to use. I like the idea. Be sure to reread the squat section just as kind of a warning about the issue with squats. But just press and goblet squat for a couple of weeks, I think might have real value. Let me know how it goes. I'm very interested in this. Thank you. We have a question from Ollie, and Ollie says this. Hello, this is Ollie from Germany. Hello, Ollie. Thanks for your podcast. It's been a lot of fun listening to you, and I'm learning a lot. I also have a question for you. I have been doing martial arts for a long time, and I train almost every day. I train with the kettlebell at least twice a week. I take care of agility and mobility in my health and sports. Unfortunately, I'm suffering from the thyroid gland and cannot train. Of course, I'm not asking you for medical advice, and I appreciate that. I'm asking myself which movement makes sense. Do you have any advice on how I can deal with this break in training? First, the late, great Tiffany did have a thyroid issue. She had a goiter, a much different style of goiter, and she had to not only have her thyroid removed, but she had to have something called, I want to say, the parathyroids removed. Well, I got to tell you, this is definitely medical intervention. This was a very serious surgery, long-term issues with her hormones. Of course, you lose the thyroid. There's still things you need, but fortunately and wisely, she took the advice and she was okay. Thyroid issues are, the thyroid is an amazing gland. I mean, obviously every gland is amazing. I was looking at a chart last night. It's funny, it came to my head, but and I was looking at the major thyroid system of the body, and it kind of goes, and when you look at the chakras of Ayurvedic medicine, the traditional Hindu way of looking at life, our hormones and the chakras, they really do seem to be almost in the same places. Our hormone glands. It was just the thought. There's no science behind what I just said, but it was interesting. So the thyroid sits up here. Issues with it often people can put on a lot of body weight. People could lose a lot of body weight. It's a real mix, but fortunately the blood tests now are fantastic and they really can target in something quite quickly. Like every surgery that I would give you, no matter what question you have, the most important thing you do post-surgery or post any kind of medical intervention is listen to what the doctors are telling you. And I always say this because no matter what injury I get, it's the first time I've ever had that injury. The medical professional that I go to, the wrist doctor, the hip doctor, I'm the 7,000th customer they have. They have a lot more experience. So if they tell you to do this, this, and this, do this, this, and this, and that's the best advice I can give you. Now, since we're all weightlifters and we want to get going as fast as we can, when you do get clearance and you start to come back, I would err on the side of easy. I wouldn't mind if you just picked like 9 whole body movements and just did, at first you could even just do the empty bar, but just have like minor practice sessions, a couple days of one set of, anywhere between 8 and 15 reps. I mean, now I feel like I'm going to some of my old books here from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, where that was how they started with everybody. But there's some good value to it. If you just decided in your first workout or two to do as appropriate, the upper body workout would be more concerned. But a horizontal press variation, bench, row, horizontal pull, vertical push, military press, vertical pull, whatever you can do. You might have to use a lat pull machine or that strange looking device where you do pull-ups on a platform, but it pulls your body weight up with it. Squat, deadlift, curl, and an ab exercise, or however you work it out. Do one set of 8 to 15 reps. It can be the empty bar. It can be a stick. And just kind of get a sense of, okay, one thing I've always noticed after surgeries is I am sprinting up the beach to start this program. I'm ready to take on all comers, give me everything. And then I go do an exercise and I sit in the chair and go, oh. So what we want to do is not overtax your recovery ability. You've got to recover. And then after that, we want to improve. So it's a little different. There's nothing new. This is, Hans Selye taught us this years ago. You're in that trough, and now we want to move into this super adaptation. I simplified it a lot there. But that's kind of what I want you to think about, is I want you to get in there, maybe even as soon as you're cleared, when you feel good, go in there, have a week of one set of a couple of exercises, check in. Week 2, maybe even try it again. If you want to move ahead a little bit, do it. But I would wait, okay, after you're cleared, I'd give yourself 3 to 6 weeks of just easy movement, enjoy, walk. If you can play, but gently nudge yourself back into the direction of exercise. And then after about 6 weeks or so, if you've been getting your sleep, you've been taking care of your food and your hydration and all that stuff, you should be cleared to go. When I had my second total hip replacement, even though my mind was raring to go, I was able, for some reason, to stick with a much more gentle, logical, let's do this. Didn't really work my legs. I started adding some load by doing military presses and things like that off of a rack. I gave myself a real chance to make sure everything was fine. The weirdest thing after any surgery is that, you'll want to touch it to make sure everything's still there and in place. Do that. And after about 6 weeks that you should be able to go. Okay. Hope that helped. I didn't give any medical advice. I support what your doctor and your physio or trainer or whatever says. Do the rehab, and then when you're cleared, take your time to get back in shape. Take your time to get back in shape. That almost should be a sign up on a wall in a gym. We have a little joke sign up in my gym. What's better than nothing? Anything, To take your time after any kind of injury or anything is just good common sense. And of course, You know, we always joke about there's one of the rarest things nowadays is common sense. So take your time. Thank you. We have a question from Mac. Mac says, I'm a 70-year-old man, and my main sports are now golf, soccer refereeing, throwing a frisbee at beach and backyard, and chess tournaments every Thursday. I still work full-time. Yep. And I think most of us were born after that first wave of the baby boomers. Will be working till the day we die. We didn't get any of the benefits. I started this email before listening to podcast 202. Haha. I started your 10,000 swing challenge in 2020, but can't do the 400 hip thrust yet. Kettlebell swings, ab work, jump rope, etc. is my daily workout. Should I strive for further strength and fitness or just hold fast? You know, let's talk about hip movements, the swing, the hip thrust, the squat, the deadlift, and the Olympic lift family, and the rest of the actual power lifts. You know, I am sitting on a gold mine, as I've said many times, is that the glutes are probably, in my humble opinion, the symbol of youth. And at 70, Mac, I still think working the glutes is probably the most important thing you could do. I've mentioned this many times. When I first came online, I was invited to join a group of women who'd all lost at least 100 pounds. And they did it by low carbing, and they all lifted weights. And it's weird because they'd all agreed that overhead press, and there's no question, overhead press, and the other one was an and/or. It was deadlift or squat. So the and/or. You had to overhead press and squat or deadlift. And they made great progress. And I was very impressed. A wonderful, wonderful group of women. I think they nailed it with that combination exercises because, you know, if you read your Vlad Yonda, and if you just look at the beach, you'll notice that one of the things you'll notice with aging people is that they start to get this sag here. The arms start to creep up. The chest loads up. They creak forward, and I feel it sometimes happen to me. The hamstrings get extremely tight. The hip flexors get extremely tight. And the butt weakens and sags. The saggy butt syndrome is a sign of age. Well, probably the best thing you can do, and no matter how you get there, I don't care, Mac. I don't care what you do. I was doing that 500 hip thrust challenge for a while. I did 2 full rounds of it, so I did 20,000 hip thrusts. It took me almost, most of the summer, and then into, when I was in England in June, I was doing it. And when I was in Vermont in August, September, I was still doing it. So I'll give you an idea how long it takes to get to, at 500 hip thrusts a day, how long it takes to get through it. It takes time. I liked it a lot. But at the end, I think my body had gone, yeah, we know what you're doing. No more surprises here. And if you can still swing, if you can do the hip thrusts, I love what you're doing here. You said this, that you're doing kettlebell swings, ab work, jump rope is my daily workout. I love it. Now, on this idea of holding fast, Frank Zane, the great bodybuilder, used to say that there is no maintenance. Either you're improving or you're disproving. I don't know. The opposite, deproving. There's no middle. There's no maintenance. Is that true? Okay, it's true. It's true-ish, true-esque. It's always good, I think, to have, a distant thunder in your head. Like in August, I'm going to this vacation with my family, and I want to do this, and this. I want to be ready. But it's okay in the 5 months, 10 months, year to go, but I need to make sure I have this fixed. So maybe you get some medical intervention. Maybe you have to do some rehab work. Maybe you got to do more mobility work. Maybe you need to do more flexibility work. Maybe to make you feel good and look good in the summer, maybe in the winter, you need to do a lot more yoga, you know, when you go into those hot sauna yogas and, you know, lubricate everything out. But so even though sometimes you might not be going ahead on all your qualities, you know, like the problem is we fall in love, at least in my world, with just being stronger, always adding more weight to the bar and always looking better, which is hard to do. Sometimes to be stronger and to look better, you got to, you know, regain your flexibility. You got to regain your mobility. Maybe you need nutritional interventions or whatever. So your question is this: should I strive for further strength and fitness or just hold fast? I would always argue that keep trying to nudge up some quality all the time. So if you have this goal, and I love what you're doing here, the refereeing, the frisbee, the golf, I love it. So maybe there's a golf quality you can nudge up. Maybe you want to work in your putt. So the month of November this year is Putt November, okay? And you're going to practice your putt every single day. Well, because you're doing a lot of this, or you're trying to work on your driver, that's probably not a good idea to do a lot of ballistic work, because you're already taking care of it. Maybe if you're working on your chipping game, that might be a really good time to see if you can increase your mobility in the goblet squat. So what we're always doing is, I think, is say like there's 10 things in my life I'm trying to work on. Sometimes I'll maintain, just hang on, hold fast, as you saw in Master and Commander. Hold fast, the motto of the McLeods, hold fast. So in 8 of those things, hold fast, hang in there, keep those. And 1 or 2 of those others, move ahead. I got to tell you, Mac, if I've had a secret in the last 2 or 3 years, it's when I realized I can no longer be in a situation, and I'm not sure I ever could, where I'm trying to improve everything at once. So what I do now is I pick things and I say, well, I'm going to get a little better at this in the next couple of months, but I'm not going to stop. Like, I'm not going to stop meditating. I'm not going to stop eating my fermented foods. I'm still going to eat my vegetables every meal. I'm going to get my protein in. You know the drill. But maybe like in the last couple of months, I've been trying to do more saunas. And in fact, right now my sauna is on. When I finish this podcast, I'm going to pop in there with my meditative music and, you know, sweat myself silly. Saunas, I don't work on the saunas in the middle of summer here in the desert of Utah. It's called going outside. So what I'm trying to get across is, yes, try to improve, but don't improve everything. Pick and choose and try to see if those things if you're going to do 2 things, make sure they are complementary with an E so that they work together and not opposite each other. I think if you were to decide to really increase your driving, you know, the distance on your driver, if you were 18, 19, 20, maybe we would do a lot of hinges and stuff like that to up that during that time. Now I'd recommend doing something a little bit more gentle to the body, if that makes sense. Great question, and I appreciate you asking. That's a really good question. Toby has a question. I'm a long-time follower of your podcast, and I enjoy listening to it every week. So thank you. You are welcome. It's an honor. I've been using kettlebells for several years now, and I've gotten to be proficient with them. After listening to your podcast for so long, I have finally started to learn the Olympic lifts. Well, good for you. It's funny because so many of my listeners will learn the Olympic lifts by trying them out with broomsticks and then going to their gym and learning. And yet some strength coaches don't think you can coach the Olympic lifts. It's maddening to me. Good for you, Toby. And I've enjoyed learning them. I found in my first class that while my technique was not very good, I did have a good level of strength work and capacity to learn through the 2-hour class. In your experience, have you found kettlebell work, especially the swing family, to have a good carryover to the Olympic lifts? Boy, yes. I would like to use both kettlebells and the Olympic lifts moving forwards. Do you have any experience combining the 2 in a program? Yeah, I do. I do have a lot of experience combining the 2. In my own case, once I started doing kettlebells, as I told the RKC community, it was the game changer for my track and field. I still Olympic lifted. I was getting over that broken wrist, which still can, when weather changes like it did, still nag me. But Some of the kettlebell mobility exercises were some of the best things I ever did. Of course, later I came up with the goblet squat, well, later, before that, but then adapted to the kettlebell. So yeah, so if you look at my programs like the Perfect Program, you'll notice that there's an exercise in there where we do goblet squats at the bottom. We put the weight down at the bottom, pick up a stick and stand up with it. It's the goblet squat to overhead squat drill. That is a thing that every single thrower, American football player I coach, wrestler, heck, anybody I coach, that's an exercise they learn. It really destroys some people. They get exhausted doing it. They get exhausted doing it because of the flexibility and mobility issues. And one of the things you might have already picked up, Toby, is that when you do the Olympic lifts, flexibility and mobility become a big deal. I hate it when people say, oh, the Olympic lifts are just technique and you got to be, you know, mobile and flexible. Yeah, that might be true. But I got to tell you, I snatched 314. Just next time you go into the gym, you know, slap 3 big plates on both sides, pop it up, and do an overhead squat with 315 pounds, and tell me that there's no strength involved at all. I can't recommend that. I think that would kill people. Went to a gym one time, and when I walked in, the guy goes, "Hey, can you overhead squat 405? No. I wish I could. I couldn't do it. There is a great benefit in doing the kettlebell swing and doing the Olympic lifts because it teaches that great hinge. When you talk to the great, if you are listen to like the Greek Olympic lifters during their heyday in the 90s and the early aughts, one of the things they really emphasized was as you drive the bar off the floor, so that very first part, I was always taught that you drive your heels into the ground as hard as you could, and you do something like a leg press. Well, they did a very similar concept. By the way, the Bulgarians with their heels only technique, Russ Nip telling us one time that all the pull is heels, 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 very similar. But the Greek lifters would try to think about pushing the knees back. It's the exact same concept because it gets you into that strong, massively strong hinge position. The nice thing about the swing is that you get yourself in that hinge position and hinge plank, hinge plank, hinge plank. So if you do that, if you do swings in the warm-up for your Olympic lifts, it gives you a very interestingly specific warm-up, but it also gets you into that feeling of what you're trying to do. So I coach the Olympic lifts kind of like a bow and arrow technique, I call it, where the chin and the butt are the tips of the arrow. And of course, the bow string is the hamstrings. And we're shooting the bow and arrow is going this way, okay? So what we're doing is we're trying to stretch those hamstrings so it, boom, snaps you up. The arrow is that, that full tall position, the extension. I think the kettlebell swing does a good job reinforcing that movement. I think the goblet squat and the goblet squat into the overhead squat are just phenomenal warm-up movements. If you ever see me lift at a meet, Toby, that is something you'll see me do. The goblet squat into the overhead squat. I mean, I've done it with plates. I've done it with dumbbells. I've done it with my bag one time at a meet. They really didn't have a lot of equipment backstage. And so I used my gym bag, pushed my knees out, but I used the women's bar to stand up with, just to get, kind of warmed up, lubricated. So, oh yeah. Now, when you combine them in a program, you've got 2 options here. First off, and I think this is the option I would push for most people who want to go on the platform and compete, is that your warm-up might be a mini hardstyle kettlebell certification, and you can find out more from that brilliant book, Hardstyle Kettlebell Challenge by, who wrote that? So in your warm-ups for your weightlifting, you could do some swings. I would suggest 5 sets of 15. That's 75, won't take very long. Some of that goblet squat into overhead squat. If you do 2 sets of 5 or 8s or something like that, it would only take a few minutes. It would only take a few minutes to do all of that. It's not necessarily a specific warm-up, it's a general warm-up, but it's specific in the idea, and I think, is that the most important things an Olympic lifter has to do on each and every lift is get into that great hinge position and then snap under into that squat position. You're work on both sides of that. From there, you could go right into your snatch, clean and jerk, front squat work, and have a really good workout. I have done this with the Easy Strength for Olympic lifting versions. It doesn't work perfectly for me, but you could do something as simple as, I always like to hang for 30 seconds and then sit at the bottom, a goblet squat for 30 seconds, stand up, shake it out, get those sets of 15 reps, 5 rounds, so 50 to 75 swings, as I noted earlier, and then now go over to the barbell, maybe do some specific little, empty barbell practice movements, make sure everything's, where it should be, and then get your snatch, then you get your clean and jerk, and then if you front squat, get your front squats in. After you do that, a set of ab wheels and a walk, and you've got a pretty good day. The only thing you might want to drop out for some of us is those extra front squats if you don't need them. Sadly, I always need extra front squat work, so I have to do it no matter what. There is a wonderful what the heck effect from kettlebell swings. The first time I published an article with kettlebells was called the what the heck effect. It's when I added 70 feet to my javelin throw. I was a Weight Pentathlon athlete, and I held the American record for a long time. And I've got a funny story about why I don't have the world record, but it's a good story. But when I started doing these weird little things like halos and the goblet squats and prying movements and kettlebell swings, my throws came up. Now, in full honesty, I was also doing at the time easy strength and loaded carries. And which one of the three helped me throw? The best year of my athletic career was at age 47. And by the way, everyone just talks about, I had a huge discus throw in June of my 47th year at the, was it the Jesse Owens Twilight meet there at the Ohio State University? I think that's what the meet was called. I mean, a big, massive toss. We had national level throwers coming over to me like, that was a pretty good throw, And what at the time I was doing, I was doing basics of kettlebells, I was doing easy strength, and I was doing loaded carry. Because I was doing 3 things, you can't really pull out and say which one was best, because I like the answer of being that all 3 were the best. I guess if I could go back in time when this magic device, people ask me sometimes, one of the things I wish I would have done earlier in my career was an easy strength approach to Olympic lifting and use the loaded carries to deal with the other issues. But at least you can get my advice on it too. Oh, the what the heck effect. There's that word heck is usually another word. I don't use, it's not hell. I use another 4-letter word. But it's when you're doing an exercise or a thing, and over here, you oddly just improve way out of norm. So I started doing these kettlebells, and my javelin throw went 70 feet farther than my lifetime best. So, and again, there's a picture of me where I'm kind of standing going, because I couldn't believe I threw that javelin. It was an amazing toss, and that was the what the heck effect. I work with some other people who don't do the traditional sports I know, like swimmers, and the what the heck effect might be the fact that they add an exercise like kettlebells to their competitive swimming stuff, and out of nowhere their times drop. How'd that happen? How do kettlebell swings help my swim times? What the heck? So thank you. Fun question. I enjoyed that. Well, we got a question from Stan, and you mentioned doing the armor building complex every other workout. So 2 times one week and then 1 time the other week. That leads me to my question, what should I do in my other exercises? Can you go into a bit more details on here? Okay, so the ABC, I've got 2 variations, one with double bells and one with single. Let's just stick with the double variation. So 2 double kettlebell cleans, followed by 1 double kettlebell press, followed by 3 double kettlebell front squats. and you put the weight down, you rest. You go with the partner I still think is the best, but you do what you can do. Maybe 30 seconds in between, rounds, and try to get yourself up to 30 of those sometime. It's a lot of work. So the first question here is, we get here. So that leads to my question, what should I do in my other exercises? Could you go into more detail? I will, but then there's more. What do you do in your other exercises when you train the ABCs? Repeated question. Also, what do you recommend for someone like me? All I know about you, Stan, is your name, so I don't know if I can give you direct recommendations. There's no birth date, there's no sports background, After doing lots of clean presses and squats, I am often sore in those muscles, which is not unusual because it's a lot of reps. I find most other kettlebell complexes tend to overlap too much with the ABCs. There are usually squats and presses in most of them. There is just something beautiful about the ABC. Those 3 exercises work beautifully, thank you, together. And whatever exercises I try in any other workout, it just does not flow as nicely as the ABC. What ideas of a workout with ABC-like qualities could complement the ABC? Well, before we get too far, so week 1, you do the ABC twice, week 2 once, week 3 twice, week 4 once. That's my recommendation for most people. What do you do on the other days? Well, if you're a kettlebeller, let's just say you're just a kettlebeller, that's all you use. The other days would be great days to practice things like the Turkish get-up and the windmill family. I think the Turkish get-up has a lot of value. The problem is it got turned into a religion, a cult, if you will, and it's not very, it's not always helpful to have something like that happen. The Turkish get-up with light kettlebells moving up and down. I love it when you start left, you do 1 up, 1 down, you switch to right, 1 up, 1 down, and just keep going back and forth. I like Pat Flynn's advice about doing it for 10 minutes. With the windmills are simply practice. You get yourself in that position and you just double check in with your T-spine mobility. The other thing that's missing from the ABC is a kettlebell snatch. When I work with people one-on-one and they do the ABC on weeks 2 and weeks 4, where you're doing it just once, I like one day. There's certainly no problem with warming up with light Turkish get-ups, even some light windmills, but that will be the snatch day. And what we might do, I don't necessarily want you to do like you're chasing to pass the snatch test at the RKC, but I do like the idea of getting between 100 and 200 snatches in one of those workouts. So every other week, one of those workouts is 100 to 200 snatches. When I snatch, I like to just do the 100 in a row because I get tested and I got to be able to do the 100 in a row. So I always like to just do them. There's lots of variations. The one I think there is one variation I think is pretty good. It's funny because up here we got the Viking warrior condition up there somewhere and the author has disavowed it, but I still think there's value to it. So it's very simple. And let me just summarize it the way it should be done. When the clock hits, the second hand hits the 12, you do 7 snatches with your left hand. You put the bell on the ground, you shake it out. When the second hand hits the 6, you do 7 snatches with the right hand. So 7, 14 a minute for as long as you can go. Now listen, it doesn't sound like much, but if you go for 10 minutes, that's, that's a fair number of snatches, that's 140 snatches, which is not bad. I still think there's great value to the workout. You can also break down the workouts like we do. You do a set of 25 left, set of 25 right. You could do 20, 20, 15, 15, 10, 10, 5, 5. You can do that, or do what we do for the snatch test. 20 left, 20 right, 15, 15, 10, 10, and then 5, 5 if you need to get to the 100. You can just play around with numbers like that. And by the way, snatches can be an entire workout. If you did the Turkish get-ups in your warm-up, you did some goblet squats to loosen up, you did some windmills to just check in. When you finish those snatches, just doing something like a farmer walk, a suitcase carry with that single bell might just be plenty, if not enough. I mean, it might be too much. So You're going to do the ABC on your Wednesday. Let's do that snatch workout I just described on Friday. On your Monday, thank God it's Monday. The Monday workout could just be a standard old school double kettlebell press, double kettlebell front workout, even double kettlebell higher rep deadlifts. Well, that's not bad at all. Like sets of 20, 3 sets of 20 in the double kettlebell deadlift, where the weights are, you maybe even a sumo position, weights on the ground, stand tall. On the other weeks 1 and 3, I'd recommend the humane burpee. Now that's, let's give it to you the hard way. 15 swings, 10 goblet squats, 10 push-ups, 15 swings, 9 goblet squats, 9 push-ups, 15 swings, 8, 15, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. That is 150 swings, which isn't crazy. 55 squats, which isn't insane. 55 push-ups. And you will find I always find the 7 is the worst for some reason. Well, I know why, but because the 10s, ooh, we're working out. The 9s, ooh, this is tougher than I thought. The 8s, ooh, this is tough. The 7s are still long enough that you're exhausted. When you get to 6, you start doing that mental math, and you get yourself out of it fast. I love the humane burpee with this. You're gonna get a lot of push-ups, a lot of swings, a lot of goblet squats, and it's a real nice combination with the armor building complex. So week 1, ABC on Monday and Friday, Wednesday humane burpee. Week 2, that little kind of bodybuilding program, the double press, the double front squat, the double deadlift. Wednesday ABC, Friday snatches. If you have your Turkish get-ups and some windmills in there, I don't think you're missing very much. And sometimes that's what you need. So thank you. I think that's a good question, Stan. I think other people will be able to use it too. A lot of people like the armor building complex. I use it as a finisher at the RKCs, but a lot of people like it as just a pure workout. So what do I know? Thanks so much. Well, there you go. That was quick, efficient, easy. Episode 217. Remember, if you have a question, podcast at danjohnuniversity.com. I come back each and every week to answer all your questions. And this week was kind of nice. I thought the questions were very good. We had some interesting things we learned here. One is that my office is a lot more secure than I thought on this rainy day, and my CO2 levels went off. So that was interesting. So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Each week I sit here, I answer your questions. It's a viewer-driven podcast, and I really appreciate that. So until next week, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.